Welcome to Manhwa Destiny, where we discover destiny in every page. The story begins in a dark and gloomy forest. It was raining heavily in the early spring of the year. We see a wrecked carriage not far from the bushes, and from the looks of it, it wasn't an ordinary accident. Blood stains are scattered around the cart, and the open door indicates that the passengers tried to escape. Now we see our protagonist. She wears a purple pendant that complements her dark blue dress. She has long violet hair and amethyst-like eyes that perfectly suit her role. Our girl is none other than Gabriella, the villainess, but we will call her Gabby for short. Our girl lies down in the rain, awaiting her end. She looks at the sky with a dead expression on her face, as if she has already anticipated this event. As she was about to close her eyes, a voice is heard addressing her as lady. The voice is from a man with black hair, slowly approaching our bloodied girl. And no, the blood isn't from her period, just to be clear. The man is evidently bewildered at the sight he is seeing. Basing from the drenched, unscathed clothing he wears, it seems like he wasn't in the carriage and only made his way by foot. Gabby gazes at the man. Despite the evident struggle, she mustered up all her strength to tilt her head and says that she wants the man to live his life. That is why she sent him away, pretending not to know. The man gently lifts up our fading girl. Underneath his robe, we see a luxurious red suit, indicating that this guy is from a royal family. Gabby just stared at him. She no longer has any strength to lift her hand or even speak. In her mind, she thinks that her end would have been better if it had been on a sunny day. The man is clearly trying to hold back his tears while asking our girl what is she doing in such a place. In Gabby's thoughts, if it had been a sunny day, the man's face wouldn't have looked so sad. As these thoughts linger her mind, her dead expression is replaced by that of sadness. The man is revealed to be Ernest Castle X, whom we will call by Ernest from now on. He is the one who belongs to the powers of the night, the leader who is faithfully followed by X's powerful army, and the husband of the villainous saint, Gabriella. Their start was a full contract, not a bond made from love. As it turns out, our girl has been reincarnated in the novel March for a True Saint as the villainous Gabriella. When she realized that, she tried desperately to remember the content of the original story, in hopes that it would help her avoid the character's fate. Gabby is an illegitimate daughter who was born to a country lord, Count Nassayert. Gabby lives like a saint. She is the jealous type, incriminating and tormenting the real saint of the original story. And in the end, like every other novel, she ended up facing death, ending her rule of tyranny and deceit. When our girl realizes this, she starts hitting the mirror while looking at herself, saying that she doesn't want to meet the same fate as the villainess. She doesn't want to die. At the time, she read the novel before she got reincarnated in her new body. The author's name came to her mind. The author released a message saying that his next job is a series of March for a True Saint, and he is currently preparing a marriage by contract story centered on the cold man in the North Sea. With that in mind, our girl thinks that if he is a cold North Sea man, then there is only Ernest, Duke X. She wonders if the man will be the male lead of the next novel. Our girl assumes that since the author's next work is a story that hasn't been done yet, there is a chance that the coldness of Ernest could change. So, Gabby thought that it would be nice if she takes on the female lead of the story. Unlike being the villainess like Gabriella, it might lead to a happy life. Going back to the present, Gabby talks to herself, saying that it is what she used to think so, but despite her efforts, she still finds herself on the brink of death. Ernest desperately calls for Gabby to stay awake, pleading our girl to not leave him behind. Suddenly, a man arrives, telling Ernest that they have caught the getaway driver of the assailants. He drags a man with a mustache with him, saying that he admitted to tampering with the carriage wheel. And on the man's back, there is a mark of the day's power. Gabby's eyes are starting to fade, yet she still put the effort to look at the man responsible for the crime. The soldier informs Ernest that the first prince must be behind all this vile act. In a cold voice, Ernest instructs his subordinate to cut off the driver's arm. He didn't even bother looking at the man. He just wants to punish the demon that caused harm to his wife like a real Chad. The getaway driver is about to learn the real definition of fuck around and find out at this moment, as his face turns pale, and his eyes widen from fear. Ernest then commands the soldier to squeeze out all information they can get from the man to know who really is behind all this. After that, the soldier is to proceed to cutting off the getaway driver's legs and make him crawl for the rest of his life. Gabby stares at the furious Ernest, stating that this is the first time she ever saw her husband gets mad like this. She admits that it is a terrifying sight to behold. Even though it was only a contract marriage, her husband has always been kind to her. The duration of the contract is 3 years. The first condition is that they had to act like a real couple, loving each other. The second condition is that they must not fall for each other. And lastly, the third is that they won't get back together after the divorce. Despite all these conditions, the 3 years they spent as husband and wife was filled with happiness. Our girl was afraid to tell her husband her real feelings, in fear of breaking the contract. She wanted to give him a certain object before the contract period ends, so that Ernest has no longer has to bow to the royal family. But she never thought that she would end up dying like this in the process. Still, she kept the family heirloom that her husband gave her as a wedding gift. A little flashback before this tragic event, the assailant suddenly opened our girl's carriage and attempts to steal her ring. In desperation, Gabby took the ring off her fingers and swallowed it, preventing the man from taking it. It is the proud relic of X that won't be destroyed by fire, a very precious ring. So, Gabby will never let it fall into the hands of the imperial family. Our girl opens her mouth and tries to tell Ernest something, but seeing her wife struggle to even speak is unbearable for the nobleman. He prompts our girl to stop talking and conserve her energy for her recovery. However, Gabby knows that she will not be able to escape the grasp of death, so she needs to tell him now. She informs her husband that she still have the ring with her. Furthermore, she comments that Ernest's body temperature is quite high, probably because he got soaked in the rain for a long time, or maybe because Gabby's temperature is slowly getting colder. Nonetheless, up until her last moments, she still shows care for her husband. Ernest pleads his wife to stop talking as if she is saying goodbye. He doesn't want to accept the truth laid right in front of him. With her last bit of strength, she grabs Ernest's robe, apologizing in her mind for leaving him such a bad memory. Regardless, she still appreciates him for coming to see her and not letting her die alone. And with that final thoughts of her, Gabby's hand loses its grip and falls to the ground, leaving Ernest with a blank expression on his face. In that faithful moment, our girl, Gabriella the villainess, dies cradled by her husband. As her soul leaves her body, our girl prays that if they are given another life, she hopes that they will meet again. The scene changes, showing the hands of the clock of life ticking and moving fast. Our girl is woken up by a man asking her if she is paying attention. She opens her eyes, visibly confused on what is going on. Our girl knows that she has died from the carriage accident, so how is she still alive? The protagonist now has a light pink hair and green eyes, totally different from the ones she had before. The place she is currently at is familiar to her. She is in the president of the Great Hall, making her wonder what is she doing in such a place when she was supposed to be dead. She contemplates why the forces of day and the forces of night are gathered in the same place, thinking if the two factions have united. There are too many questions in our girl's mind. She eager wants to know what just happened. Suddenly, the man who talked to her starts saying that today they have officially signed the marriage vow between Prince X and Her Royal Highness, the Princess. He adds that he understands that Her Highness the Princess will leave for the north with the Duke 3 days later. Our girl wonders if the Prince X the man is talking about is the same as her husband. She ponders why would there be a marriage vow between him and the princess. Suddenly, our girl notices something wrong, causing her to shake. Her head began to hurt out of nowhere, as if it was being split into two. Memories that wasn't hers started flooding her mind. People calling her the shame of the imperial family, a stain in the veins of the noble son, a sleepwalker, princess idiot. As she delves deeper, she uncovers the identity of her new physical form, Princess Peony Isodium, hailing from the esteemed factions of the sun. This princess boasts an adorned mane of pinkish, cascading curls and striking emerald green eyes. Initially, our protagonist vehemently rejects this surreal reality, grappling with the incredulity that her soul could inhabit the body of a royal figure such as Princess Peony. However, as the undeniable truth persists before her, she begins a gradual, reluctant acceptance, wrestling with the profound strangeness of the situation. Amidst this inner turmoil, a man sporting an impressive mustache maintains his discourse, insisting that unless there are objections to the impending marriage contract, the proceedings will move forward. Directing his attention to our protagonist, he summons her to the table, guiding her to review the documents laid out before her. In a commanding yet courteous manner, he urges her to affix her signature to the marriage contract, extending the same directive to Lord X, signifying the weighty formality of the occasion. The Lord X we see now has the same face as the previous one, proving that he is indeed our girl's husband, but his facial expression is that of a dead man, and his eyes look as if they are zoning out. Even our girl who knew her husband very well thinks the same. According to her, this Ernest in front of her has a darker expression and he seems much calmer and colder. Naturally, our girl's eyes drifted towards the man she loved till her death. She stares at her husband, observing every little detail that she thought she wouldn't ever see again. Ernest notices our girl's gaze, making the previous Gabby to blush. But to her surprise, Ernest just gave her a terrifying cold glare. It is as if he isn't even the slightest interested in her, even though they are both getting married. Gabby, whom we will now call Peony due to her new body, jolts from her soon-to-be husband's reaction. Ernest, no longer bothering to glance her way, hastily signs the contract, eager to put an end to this absurdity as swiftly as he can. The man with the mustache turns to our girl, prompting her to hurry up and follow Ernest's lead. But as Peony looks at the wedding vows, she can't make her hand move. She looks at the date in the document, and she learns that today is April 6, 826. It has been 6 years since Gabriella passed away. With a trembling hand, she slowly affixes her signature to the document, while in her mind, she still thinks about the fact that it has been 6 years after her untimely death. In a crazy turn of events, the heavens allowed her to be Ernest's wife once again. But this time, she is the daughter of the imperial family, which Ernest loathes. This may not go as smooth as the marriage contract with Gabriella. Our girl contemplates if she will tell Ernest the truth, that she is actually Gabriella, the villainess that died on his arms. Within the recesses of her mind, she recalls fervently praying to the gods for a chance to reunite, and miraculously, her wish was granted, permitting her return from the realm of the deaf, despite being in another woman's body. Peony opens her mouth, but no words would come out of it. Then, she tries to write something, but her hand trembled and it won't move the way she wants it to move. It is as if something is preventing her to tell the truth to Ernest. She ponders how she can convey the truth to her husband. He is just right in front of her, but she can't do anything to inform him about the situation. Perhaps this is a restriction from some kind of magic, a constraint in return for allowing her to be brought to life. With a heavy heart, she wonders if she has to continue living as Peony now and totally forget her past life. Our girl knows that it will be a hard thing to do, especially since the faction that Peony belongs to is the enemy of her husband's faction. The empire has been divided into two powers for a long time. The first one is the Day's powers. They are the wealthy capital in the south loyal to the imperial family. They also adore art, culture, and horsemanship. The second one is the powers of the night, to which Ernest belongs. Just like the Day's power, they also adore art, culture, and horsemanship. They are centered in the desolate North Sea and are completely united and follow the orders of the Grand Duke. The two empire powers have entirely different religions, cultures, and lifestyles. There is no reason for marriages beyond this influence. But what does this arranged marriage between the two factions mean? Peony looks at the wedding dress in the corner. It will be the exact same dress that she would wear in 3 days when she leaves the palace. As it turns out, the emperor suddenly insisted on reconciliation to unite the two powers. For Peony, it is honestly a good idea, especially for the north, which will benefit the most from the marriage. As she delicately runs her fingers over the fabric of the wedding gown, thoughts of her husband, Ernest, flood her mind. She has waited long just to see his face, but it has turned colder than ever. Our girl keenly observes that Ernest is compelling himself to grapple with the inevitable union between him and Princess Peony, despite his internal reluctance. Our protagonist ponders whether her time as Gabby has truly ended, contemplating whether Ernest still retains memories of her former self. Peony tells herself not to be consumed by despair. According to her, the reason why Ernest has this dark expression towards Peony is not because he remembers Gabby. She knows that her husband has that kind of expression due to his loathe for the imperial family, and Peony belongs to that family. She tries desperately not to be affected by her husband's cold gaze, repeatedly telling herself that the gloomy reaction is not because of her, but because of her body. Our girl apologizes, saying that even though she is aware that Ernest hates this idea of marriage, she can't help but be happy that they will meet again in this way. She knows it is selfish for her to feel that way, but being Ernest's wife once again brings her immeasurable happiness. The previous Gabby then wonders if her husband has eaten well during her absence. According to her, Ernest would usually skip meals because he was so focused on his work, leading her to think that he won't even be able to eat properly at the day of the wedding. She recalls the time when his servants would forcefully make him eat, even going as far as spoon-feeding him just so he won't die from starvation. Our girl felt an incredible nostalgia and longingness for the days gone by. While she was preoccupied with her thoughts, an attendant barges into her room, eager to serve her. Peony was taken aback by the maid's sudden appearance. She didn't even greet her properly despite being the princess. The maid slams down her sewing kit, an action that shouldn't be done in the presence of a royalty. Then, the maid commandingly tells her to stand up straight, saying that Peony has lost so much weight that she has to adjust her waist once again. Our girl didn't like the maid's attitude towards her. In her mind, she wonders how dare this lowly servant talks to her this way. Thanks to the memory of her new body, our girl can recall Lady Peony's condition. Since her birth, she has been mistreated, even by the maids. From a very young age, Peony was ignored and neglected. Gabby's consciousness began to transfer to Peony's body a week ago. When her consciousness penetrated her body, even though Peony remained bedridden at that time, no one cared about her, since they all had a stigma against her. Our girl thinks that the cause of all this maltreatment is one of Peony's brothers, the heirs to the throne. Despite all that, Peony survived because no one cared about her, even though her foolish brothers thought they could kill her at any moment. Our girl had to pretend to be a fool just to stay alive. She had to adapt to Peony's persona so that the people around her won't suspect a thing. There are many things that she needs to be cautious about, but she really don't deserve to be treated like trash, especially by a lowly maid. Peony smiles and asks the maid why is she the one responsible for the dress and not the princess's maid of honor. The disrespectful maid asks what's wrong with her being as a replacement. In a calm yet cold demeanor, our girl apologizes, saying that she has no choice but to do her next action, leaving the maid wondering about is she talking about. Peony just casually tells her that the maid will die within an hour, causing the attendant to be even more baffled. Our girl explains that the maid is very bold. The pearls on her gown signifies the celebration for the new bride's departure, but the maid had the audacity to replace them with fake ones. Peony smiles, asking the attendant if that act won't warrant death. She gazes down the maid with a terrifying look in her eyes. Our girl wears a sinister smile, totally in contrast with the previous Peony, and more aligned with her personality as the villainous Gabby. The maid is engulfed with despair. Her complexion turns pale as she looks at our girl's eyes. She then retreats in a panic, denying all accusations, saying that she doesn't even know if the pearls are real or not, emphasizing that she wasn't the one who did it. But our girl didn't pay attention to any of her words. Instead, she happily tells the maid to continue her work and adjust the dress to her fitting. The servant nervously complies and asks our girl if she has told anyone about this incident. Peony acts all cute and innocent, asking if she prefers that she tells the other maids about it, to which the servant quickly declines. Our girl then wonders what will happen if she spills the beans to the Prime Minister. After all, the pearls magically disappeared without anyone taking it. At this point, the servant is soiling herself from fear. She begs our girl to not tell the Prime Minister, saying that she wasn't really the one who took the pears. So, Peony asks if it was the other maids that stole it, to which the servant can't deny nor confirm. In our girl's mind, she knows that the other maids will tear her tongue out. She won't even be able to say that the other maids stole it themselves, because in reality, she is their accomplice. Peony deems the maid to be foolish. It won't be possible to change the wedding dress. They thought that even if Peony realized it, there is nothing she can do. But in our girl's case, they thought that if they stole some of them, she wouldn't find out. This terrible act made our girl wonder how many people exploits Peony like this. She claps her hand, saying that she should ask her brother first what he thinks about the dress. She innocently comments that even without the pearls, her brother would still compliment her looks and call her beautiful. Peony was about to dash out the room to go see her brother, but the maid stops her, asking to please wait a moment. Seeing that the maid is now willing to talk, Peony becomes serious and asks her who should she blame for this atrocious act. But the maid just states that she can still retrieve the pearls since there is still time before the wedding. Our girl becomes skeptical, asking how the maid knows that the pearls weren't sold off yet. The question agitates the servant, and she can't find the right words to say. Peony crosses her arms, thinking that this maid is really foolish, but even as stupid as her can be useful to our girl. As the maid can no longer provide any explanation, Peony commands her to kneel on both knees, baffling the maid. Seeing the servant act dumb, our girl asks if she needs help understanding the command, and offers her assistance to her. The servant remains defiant towards our girl's command, yet the trembling of her lips indicates that she knows that our girl is serious right now. Peony then resorts to indirect threats, saying that she will tell her brother that even without the pearls, she will get married. The maid allowed the other servants to take it and help them as well. Our girl will also make sure that her brother learns about that. This causes the maid to instantly fall to her knees, begging Peony to have mercy and give her another chance. Our girl smiles and asks the maid why is her head still held high despite kneeling on the ground. That isn't the right way to beg for forgiveness. The maid then prostrates herself, saying that she was just consumed by greed and asks for mercy. Our girl has heard the words she wanted to hear. She tells the servant that she will forgive such insolence, but in return, she will have to be loyal to her and follow our girl all the way to Ernest. The maid is bewildered by our girl's request, so Peony explains that she is actually impressed with her. If she won't agree to her request, then she will send the maid in prison and just bring along another servant. She has to choose between loyalty or spending the rest of her life in prison for stealing from the imperial family. The maid chooses the former, stating that she will become loyal to Peony from now on. Our girl then asks for her name, to which she answers Sonia. Peony pats her head, stating that from now on, the maid will be loyal to Lady Peony only. Our girl will make sure that everyone gets the punishment they deserve, and this is her thanks to Peony for giving our girl her body. It is a bouquet of flowers called Revenge. This marks the end of the chapter. What will happen next? Will the maid obey our girl and become loyal to her? Will Peony change her current life? And lastly, what will be the next problem for our girl? Tune in next time for another story. And if you enjoyed this, I would gladly create another one. Thank you again for your support, and I hope you enjoyed the video. As always, it's our destiny to discover new manhwa.